Hey guys, welcome back to Enigma Climbing. About to go to the gym to do some forearm workouts. But before I do that, I want to talk about tennis elbow. Lately, I've been suffering with this tendon issue. And tennis elbow is the soreness on the outside of the elbow, which does happen to climbers quite often. Now, in my 20 years of climbing, I've never truly had to worry about this kind of injury. This is the first year that it has been more of a problem. So I want to share with you guys how I've been dealing with it and how I'm going to continue to deal with it. Another common term for tennis elbow would be lateral epicondylitis. Now, I would actually prefer to use the term lateral epicondyle tendinopathy, because itis refers to inflammation, and usually this issue doesn't happen from acute inflammation, it happens from overuse. So tendinopathy is a better term, I would say, the proper term. So how do we deal with this? I've had quite a bit of tendon issues in the past, and I've had the most success by following these 3 steps. Number 1 would be diagnosis, and usually this is self-diagnosis. Unless you see a professional, you are going to have to diagnose yourself, which shouldn't be too much of a problem. So we're talking about overuse injuries. Why has this part of my forearm been overused then? So I've been climbing pretty hard the past year. I'm not that surprised that I'm having overuse issues, but the question is, why this area? Because this is overuse of the extensor muscles. And the extensor muscles combined with supination. And I don't mean supination like in my last video where I was training supination with that rubber sling. This is supination in conjunction with extensor use. Why does this happen? How is that overused in climbing? Most climbers forget just how much you use your extensors when you crimp like hell. Think about it. When you grab a small hold and you really got to get in that crimp position, most of the time your wrist is not flat like this. You got to extend that wrist a little bit to truly engage, unless you're just digging your fingers into that hold and using a lot of flexion, which is great if you can do that. But when stuff gets hard, your elbow's going to come out and your wrist is going to bend like that. During that movement, your extensors are working quite hard to stabilize that wrist, to put that supination into use. And then also, a lot of times you're pulling yourself into the wall, which uses these extensors even more. Combine that with pinching, especially if it's in this angle like this, and then also pulling yourself into the wall, and then you get a lot of stress on that lateral epicondyle. So that's been my issue. A lot of crimping, bending that wrist, pulling myself in, and also that type of pinching action. Specifically on necessary evil, just trying that pinch move just over and over and over again, blasting this tendon. So that's step number 1, diagnosis, knowing what's causing the damage. All right, now that I know what's causing the damage, what do we do? Step number 2, start PT, man. Physical therapy exercises are the go-to. And decreasing, especially initially, the volume of the type of climbing that's causing that damage. Now, if you notice swelling or any kind of indication that it is acute inflammation, which would result in symptoms like throbbing and just excessive pain, even when you're not doing anything, you're just sitting around, In that case, you probably just want to take 2 or 3 weeks off from climbing altogether, or any kind of exercise that stresses it. But if that's not happening, and that's usually the case, then start physical therapy while at the same time reducing the amount of climbing volume that is causing this damage. The physical therapy exercises that I like to do for this type of injury, and for most climbing injuries, are going to be done at least daily, and most often twice a day, with a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of rest in between. That's how tendons heal. I like to keep one of these handy. It's a flexible rubber bar, basically. This one is made by TheraBand Flex Bar. It sure helps to have something like this in your bag. First exercise that I like to do is I like to have the bar in front of me like this, and using my hands, not chest motion, I just press in like this. And this is going to work that supination that I'm talking about. Again, it's not that arm wrestling type of supination that I showed in that last video. This is strictly using these muscles right here on the extensor side. Just like that. I move it closer to my body and I do the same thing. And I try to find that point where it hurts the most. That's what I'm targeting. Just like that. We don't want to burn out these muscles. We just want to stimulate the connective tissue. That's the point behind physical therapy. We're not looking for a muscular strength right now. We're looking for connective tissue stimulation. I like to put my thumbs on the bottom of the bar. Sometimes you can keep them on top, but I find if I keep my thumbs on top, I end up using too much of my chest to try to collapse this bar. So thumbs on the bottom, and just really try to use your hands mostly. You can get the same results with an offset weight or a kettlebell. You can hold the weight out in front of you, or you can support your elbow somewhere. Either one will work fine. And in this case, you just let the weight drop, you let it stretch that area, and then you pick it back up with your other hand and just do the same thing. Just like with this exercise, I play around with the angle here. Where does it hurt the most? That's what I want to target. Usually I end up doing the exercise through multiple angles anyway, but you definitely want to attack that area or that angle that hurts you the most. That's where it's damaged, and that's what needs to be stressed out. In the gym, I find that it's the easiest to use a kettlebell for this type of workout. All right, so next, another workout that I like to do with this band. Hold it close to yourself, grip it pretty deep, and you just push it out, and this is gonna work out those extensors because of the spinning motion of the bar. You see? Like that. I try to focus on the isometric portion of it. That's why I'm gripping it close to my chest, deep, and then you push out. This becomes an isometric hold. Yeah, we're gonna hold that. Oh, that is working. Yeah, that soreness. That soreness. Okay, here we go. All right. Remember, twice a day if you can manage it. And on your climbing days, try to do it right after climbing. Because if you do it 2 or 3 hours after you climb or something like that, I fear that you might be overusing that tendon now. You really want to give enough rest to recover in between these sessions, which for tendons is about 6 to 8 hours. Keith Barr and his studies have demonstrated quite well that that is the case for tendon strength. So if you climb and you don't do your workouts immediately, just wait 6 to 8 hours and you can do them then. That is not going to be a problem. So what about massaging? I'm not a huge fan of massaging. Maybe it's because I have ADD and I just can't be that disciplined. But you can throw that in there. 2, 3, maybe even 4 times a day. You can just find that area and massage it with the bony part of your thumb. It's supposed to work some. I find, though, that the physical therapy exercises are the ones that really do it. The massaging, I can't ever tell how well it's working, but it's worth a shot. Throw that in there. If you can manage it, fine. Most likely, it will not hurt you. Step number 3 is going to be strength training. This is when prevention really comes into play. Once you've done your PT workouts for a while, usually for about 3, 4, 5, even 6 months sometimes, depending on how much damage you've incurred, throw in some serious strength training workouts for these areas. And it's essentially going to be the same kind of exercises. But instead of just using it for physical therapy, really increase the pressure. So when I go in the gym and I do my kettlebell exercises, I'm not just going to focus on isometric contraction now, because now I want to strengthen that entire structure, muscularly as well as just tendon. And so you really want to increase the load. When I do my kettlebell exercises, I'm actually going to do it to where I feel the muscle being worked. I want to feel that burn. Those extensor exercises that I showed you in the last video, gonna be hitting those hard as well. Gonna include more supination exercises, not just the arm wrestling type of supination, but really getting those extensors to work and putting your wrist in that position that has caused the injury in the first place. But with the strength training, you should be able to be more resistant to the climbing forces placed upon this. Now, before I wrap it up, I do want to say that even while I'm doing my PT exercises, I'm still at least once a week going to be doing my extensor exercises that I've been doing on a semi-regular basis for years now, because I don't think that's going to hurt me at all. But once the PT phase is over, though, I will kick it up a notch and add a couple more exercises to strengthen that weakness in the elbow. All right, well, that's it for this video. Share in the comments your experiences, how you've managed these types of issues, and what has been the most successful. All right, guys, get out there, climb your projects, and stay healthy. Peace out. See you next time.